So I went by myself down to a little resort on Veradero Beach. And now, I hadn't been out of the hospital very much. And I know that sounds really bad, but you know what I mean. And I didn't want to look like a loser. So I brought this journal with me so that I could sit by the pool and look busy. Didn't think I'd actually write anything of note in it, but as I was sitting there by the pool, pretend writing in my journal. You can pretend write in your Spark notebook too, right? Don't tell them I told you that. As I was sitting there writing in my journal, I wrote down, I want to be a writer. And I was like, what? I had been pigeonholed as a scientist from the 4th grade. And to me, arts classes of any kind were to be avoided at all costs unless I absolutely had to do them to graduate. That's the only exposure to writing that I had had. And then the strangest thing happened one night. I went to the beautiful, tropical, open-air theater where every night they would put on a different kind of entertainment, sometimes a little questionable, but this particular night was really, really special. I will never forget just sitting in the very back row by myself and the moment when the lights went down and the most incredible music started to play. There were bongos, and maracas, piano, trumpets, clave, ta, 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 ta. It was salsa music. And I'm sure that at some point I had heard salsa music before. But in that moment, it was like I was hearing it for the very first time. And as I sat there, the most unbelievable Cuban salsa dance team exploded onto the stage in a riot of color and passion. And I still get goosebumps every time I talk about it. And as I sat there watching them, I remembered something. I remembered that in the late 1970s, there had lived a little girl. And if you had asked that little girl what she was going to be when she grew up, she would have told you immediately. She would have said, by day, I'm going to be a journalist. But by night, get ready for this. By night, I am going to be a solid gold, oh yeah, dancer. Woo! Oh, I'm so glad you know what I'm talking about. Now, for those of you who are too young to know, and I know there are some, here is a visual clue. All right. It was all about the stilettos, the sparkling spandex, and the disco ball. And if you haven't figured this out already, that little girl was moi. And my parents, God bless them, even though I begged them for dance classes since I was about 2, they decided I was better off in gymnastics, which I really was not very good at. So I had to take matters into my own hands. And I secretly created my own little dance studio in the basement with my record player and my pile of ABBA records. Oh yeah, I've still got them. And my all-time favorite, Sesame Street Fever. They just don't make it like they used to. So I practiced my sexy moves and my high kicks and my spins because I knew that even though the grown-ups did not have a clue, one day I was going to be like my heroes and I was going to be a professional dancer, and I was even going to dance on television, and I was going to be ready. Now, childhood is just an amazing place for you to look. If you're lacking passion, if you're feeling stuck, if you feel like something's missing, go look there. About the time that you're about 8 or 9 years old, you're well enough formed that you really are yourself. Typically, the grown-ups haven't gotten to you yet in terms of deciding what you should be when you grow up. So look back and think, as a child, what were you obsessed with? And I encourage you to open up that Spark notebook, write it down if something comes to you. If nothing comes to you, don't worry. This is now percolating in your mind, and you may suddenly get a flashback 2 weeks from now while you're driving. It'll be awesome. Just focus on the road. And as we go through this journey, actually, I'd love you to keep that notebook open so that if there's anything in particular that grabs you, that you have an aha moment about, jot it down so that you remember. So sitting there in that theater in Cuba, I remembered that awesome little girl. And I knew that dancing would save my life. So I went home, I resigned from my residency. I got my license as a GP, which I still use part-time to this day. And I signed up for my very first salsa dance lesson. Thank you. The applause is not for my teacher, though, because he did not recognize my potential. Poor him, I just moved right on. Took 2 more. Finally, I found a teacher who saw my potential. I was 28 years old, and I'd already wasted 2 decades, so there was no time to waste. And I started performing for local salsa dance teams and started teaching workshops, and then discovered the love of my life, Spanish flamenco. So I studied flamenco. I got to go to Spain a number of times to take courses, started dancing in my local flamenco cafe. As a professional, I was getting $35 a show. I was so excited. I was living the dream. I was a doctor by day and a dancer by night. And a funny thing happened. I started getting happier and happier. I didn't need my antidepressant medication anymore. In fact, I haven't needed it for 14 years now. Yeah. Now, it's not always that simple, and there's a lot more to it, but it's amazing. It's amazing what a little passion and joy and time for yourself doing something that you love. And obviously, there was the exercise with it, too. Dancing is amazing. You don't even know you're working out, which always works well for me. So down in Mexico, I started my own flamenco and salsa dance company. I got asked to perform at weddings and villas, and some celebrities, actually, I was asked to give dance lessons to. To this day, they have no idea that they were taught by a Canadian medical doctor. So there I was in Mexico. Things were going so well. I looked back at the last few years, and I started analyzing it and figuring out, how can I help other people do this in their life, but in their own unique way? So I wrote a book about it. I started coaching people. I started getting to speak all over North America. It was just incredible. It was incredible how much just identifying a passion. That's where all this started. Identifying that I wanted to write and I wanted to dance. And just based on those 2 pieces, and whatever it might be for you, just knowing what you're passionate about. So I want to walk you through just a couple of examples of how you can identify passion in your life, how you can find it. So this is a fun one. Think back to a time when you were happiest. I have a 62-year-old coaching client who I worked with, and she was feeling really stuck in blah. And so I did this exercise with her, and she remembered that as a young girl, she played this game called Monkey Jungle. And what Monkey Jungle is she and her little friends used to go in the woods behind their homes, and they would climb trees, and they'd swing from them, making monkey noises. And at 62, she remembered that time when she was about 7 as the happiest in her whole life. So you want to look back at what were the elements at that time. And she identified it, first of all, that she felt really, really strong and powerful. She needed to start strengthening her body so she'd feel powerful again. And also, she absolutely loved nature. And her life had been without spending time in nature for a long time. So she began spending more time at the beach, going for walks in the woods, and started to feel that rejuvenation again. Another thing is to notice what makes you envious. This is actually a great way to turn envy around, because feeling envious or jealous isn't a good feeling. But if you use it as a tool to see what it's telling you about you, it can be so helpful. I had a client who it drove her crazy that her aunt was the lead singer in a rock band. Made her nuts. She would sit in the audience pretending to smile, and she told me this. I don't think she'd actually told anybody. She would sit there and she'd be like, "She's not that good. What's she doing up there? I could be up there." But she wasn't. And so when we talked about it, it came out, sure enough, that she had a guitar, which had gathered dust for years. And years ago, she had actually jammed with a group of friends a lot. And they had even done some gigs. And then it all just kind of fizzled. And she'd gotten really busy with her business. And so once she picked up that guitar and started calling some of those friends, she started to feel so good and started to enjoy her own life in so many ways, so much more. Because the thing about a passion is you don't have to do it all the time. It doesn't have to become your job. Whatever room you have in your life that you can fit a passionate activity in, it has this phenomenon where it just brings light to everything that you do. It changes how you walk. It's incredible. And it's really important for you to understand that this is fun. It's play. This is not another kind of pressure to add to your life, another thing on your to-do list. I don't want you to receive it like that. This is fun. Think of it as a treasure hunt. You really don't know where it's going to take you. It's great to have a vision, but I like to think of it as getting a clue at a time. It was like all I had was Cuba. That was my clue. I didn't know what would happen. I had no idea. I did not know that I would be here on this stage today. I did not know everything that was coming. Live it like a treasure hunt.